Why does a person that never was a slave deserve compensation from a person that never owned a slave?
Bank of America and much of the U.S. financial system were built on the profits from slavery, using enslaved people as loan collateral and even owning them when debts weren't paid. These same institutions, which grew into billion-dollar corporations from the slavery of our ancestors, continue to uphold systems of institutional racism that today prevent Black people from building generational wealth. The horrors of slavery didn't end with emancipation. They left deep scars that still shape the lives of Black people today. This inherited trauma, known as post-traumatic slave syndrome, is rooted in generations of violence, ripped apart families, and stolen identity. It continues to affect mental health, family relationships, and the overall well-being of Black people. The U.S. government has paid reparations to Japanese Americans interned during World War II, and even Americans held hostage in Iran. Yet the only people paid for slavery were the slave owners for losing their slaves after the Civil War. The victims of slavery were never paid. Our ancestors were stolen and endured some of the most violent atrocities in human history. So white people in this country could build their largely unearned generational wealth that they still sit on today, while Black people have been systemically denied the right to build and pass down the wealth we fought hard to earn for generations. Because every single time we did build, for example, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, the whites burned down the entire town. You stole our ancestors. You stole their labor, which made the U.S. an economic superpower. You stole their futures. You dehumanized, brutalized, and traumatized them. Then that generational trauma was passed down to their descendants, who you continue to traumatize and brutalize with your systems of oppression put into place to limit and prevent us from creating generational wealth. And you refuse to dismantle your systems of oppression because that would be admitting that white prosperity was built on Black suffering. But you still owe for the centuries of unspeakable atrocities, because reparations are not charity. It's an unpaid debt that you owe.
Reparations. It's a topic that still sparks a lot of debate. Some people ask, why are Black Americans asking for reparations when they were never enslaved? Others wonder, why should anyone today pay for something that was done by their ancestors? If you ever ask yourself those questions, you're not alone. But this issue runs deeper than most people think. In today's video, I'm going to explore this topic in the way that we break it all down using some powerful clips from real people online. Shout out and credit to original creators of those videos. Later on, I'll be calling one of my Black American friends who knows the history inside and out. He will help us to even go deeper into why this conversation matters. Make sure you watch this video all the way through, because this is about understanding, not hate. And just a reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. We do not support harm or hate toward anyone. Stay tuned. Let's talk about it.
Why does a person that never was a slave deserve compensation from a person that never owned a slave?
The fact that this question is coming from a person of color makes this all the more despicable. But since you've shown the world how little you know about history and finances in this country, let me help you out just a little bit. And you don't need a college education to know this, maybe high school at the very least. You ready? The same way that generational wealth can be passed down through generations, generational debt can also be passed down through generations. If the descendants of slave owners who created these multi-billion-dollar financial institutions off of the free, back-breaking, unending 4 centuries, 12 to 16 generations of chattel slavery, is still benefiting from that wealth today in 2025, then why shouldn't the descendants of those slaves be able to have the debt paid to them that was never paid to their ancestors? It doesn't matter if the people now didn't own the slaves. What matters is that they are still benefiting from the wealth that was created because of those slaves who were never paid. Do you understand that? This is not rocket science, my friend. It's common sense, and clearly you're showing the world that you're void of it. And I'm not really sure what you're hoping to get out of this, but if you think your pandering, pick-me-ass behavior is going to get those same descendants of that generational wealth to give you a few dollars, then you have truly lost your mind. You will never be picked. You will never be in the situation that Black people are in today to be owed that generational debt. Because your ancestors, unless you are the descendants of African slaves, did not survive these horrific atrocities only to never be compensated. Baby, we didn't even get the 40 acres and the mule that was promised to us. But guess who did get paid for the losses that they incurred? I'm just going to go ahead on and tell you, because if you're asking this question, you're never going to be able to figure it out. The slave owners, which provided more wealth that they were able to invest and turn into business, multiply exponentially, and pass down through generations. I hope that helps you.
Give me your strongest argument in support for reparations and reparations right now.
Reparations right now, and we should have been have reparations because foundational Black Americans built this country from scratch. If it were not for foundational Black Americans giving hundreds of years of free labor, this country would not be in the position it's in right now. And the whole argument was that was long ago. No, the money is not long ago. The money generated and the wealth is still here. Money doesn't disappear. It gets compounded and passed down through generations. The money has been passed down and the debt of slavery has been passed down generationally to us, and we have to be repaired. Nobody has a problem with Native Americans getting compensated. They don't say that was long ago. That was long ago, and they get casinos and they get compensated now. Nobody says, well, I wasn't there when the Native Americans are getting chipped off. No, I didn't have anything to do with Native Americans getting put on reservations, but my tax dollars go to help them. I didn't have anything to do with people being put in concentration camps in Nazi Germany. Some of my tax dollars go to that. I didn't have anything to do with the Japanese out here on the West Coast being put in internment camps during World War II. When they started giving them money in the 80s and 90s, that was some of my tax dollars.
I have a slightly hot take. It's probably already been said, but they don't want to give Black people reparations because they know that if we receive reparations, we would leave. A lot of us want to leave, and the big reason why we don't leave is because we have no means to leave. We don't have the money to live somewhere else. We're barely living here. So they know. Also, they're fucking cruel and just disgusting, but they know if they gave us reparations, we would leave and they would have nobody to oppress. They would have nobody to do whatever the fuck they want to do to. And they keep talking about birthright citizenship and they got their way with the Supreme Court. We all know that. But they do know that it applies to them mostly. I don't think it matters because, you know, in the back of their minds, they probably do understand that it applies to them, but they don't think that the rules apply to them ever anyway. So, but if you start rounding up Black people because for whatever reasons you decided we're not citizens, where are you deporting us to? Although let's not kid ourselves, we know that it's not about deportation. It's about kidnapping. It's about doing the same thing that they did hundreds of years ago. If they figure out a way to do it, they probably will. But again, that's why we'll never get reparations, period. Under any administration. Never. They don't want us to leave. They want us here.
I don't ever want to hear the argument that Black people don't deserve reparations because we today weren't alive during slavery. One, because reparations are not just about slavery, and if you knew anything about reparations, you would know that. Two, because these two survivors of the Tulsa massacre are still alive and were denied their reparations by the state of Oklahoma. Miss Leslie Benningfield Randall, Miss Viola Fletcher, and Mr. Hughes Van Ellis. began this suit in 2020 with hopes of seeing justice in their lifetime. Hughes Van Ellis died last year at the age of 102. About 300 Black people were murdered in Tulsa, Oklahoma that day by a white mob, many of them police. Their homes and businesses were robbed and burned to the ground. Those Black people who did survive, who were able to get away, were made refugees in their own country and thrown in concentration camps policed by the National Guard. The terrorists who did this were not adjudicated against. The Black victims, the survivors, their descendants were not given $1 of restitution or reparations or a bit of justice. The argument against reparations, that no one who was alive at the time should get them, supports an idea that if we were alive at the time, we should get them. And yet when we were alive in 1865, in 1965, in 2024, that remains untrue.
Listen, I think reparations has to happen for Black people. You know what I mean? Because slavery was America's original sin. And I really don't think no good is going to come to this country until they atone for their original sin, which was slavery. I mean, my ancestors literally built this country for free. So when you see all of this money being thrown around, you know, $27 trillion in national debt, $1.7 trillion for failed F-35 fighter jets.
$500,000 for dogs.
$500,000 for fucking dogs. It's like, if you're Black in this country, you have to be like, well, what the hell? What's up with us? You know what I mean? So for me personally,
but again,
I don't even see what the issue is. Hey, listen, when a debt is old, a debt is old. Period. I'm 97% West African, born in Charleston, South Carolina, so I should definitely get a check. But if it's to the point where, you know what, you make too much money, we don't think you deserve it, cool, give it to somebody who needs it. But to act like Black people in this country don't deserve reparations is absolutely nuts to me. Hey, this is what I want. Put it like this, America. Just treat Black people like they're F-35 fighter jets. You had $1.7 trillion to throw at that bullshit. Throw it at the people who actually built this country.
4 myths about reparations for Black descendants of slavery in the U.S. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. I know a lot of people immediately jump to anger and dismissal when this conversation comes up, but I want you to stick with me and stay open-minded because I might hit you with a perspective you've never considered before. Myth 1, reparations is unnecessary because slavery is a thing of the past. The truth, the legacy of slavery, which leads to black codes, which leads to Jim Crow, which leads to redlining, which leads to mass incarceration, and so on and so forth, continues to shape the lives of Black Americans today through ongoing economic and social disparities. Addressing the injustices of the past is necessary to addressing the ongoing issues of the present. Myth 2, reparations is a form of reverse racism. The truth, first off, the phrase reverse racism is problematic for many reasons that we'll have to explore on another day. But it's important to note that reparations are based on the specific injustices that Black people faced due to slavery and discrimination. The goal of reparations is to address historical injustices and provide opportunities for economic repair and mobility, not to discriminate against any particular group. Myth 3, reparations will be a handout and would discourage Black people from working. The truth, again, reparations are about repairing harm and bringing restoration. It cannot be overstated how huge the legacy of slavery is to today in terms of access and opportunity. Reparations will be an investment in the future, addressing systemic issues that lead to racial disparities, and providing opportunities for economic mobility. And myth 4, reparations would further the racial divide already in this country. The truth, reparations will be a step towards racial healing and acknowledging the harm caused by slavery and discrimination. It could serve as a unifying force for the country and could help to promoting greater understanding and connection. If you're still watching this video, I trust that you are a critical thinker who values developing informed opinions and not just knee-jerk reactions. I got a resource to share with you that you gotta check out ASAP. Please check out the documentary called The Big Payback. It's out now on PBS. It's made by Whitney Dow and Erica Alexander. Yes, that Erica Alexander. And it talks about the amazing reparations advocacy work done by former Alderman Robin Rue Simmons and Representative Cheryl Jackson Lee. Ms. Rue Simmons helped pass the first taxpayer-funded reparations program in U.S. history. And Ms. Jackson Lee developed and helped pass H.R. 40, which helps to develop game plans on a national level to study and explore options for reparations for Black Americans. The film is super thought-provoking, and you might even shed a tear or two, which I may or may not have done when I watched it. If we care about anti-racism, we must prioritize economic justice as well. Please share and repost this video if you learned anything from...
Don't support reparations. Why not?
Not everybody suffered equally. I mean, when you go into slavery, it's much more complex than white people were the oppressors and Black people were the victims. If you dissect it, you will find there were about 3,700 free Blacks who owned 12,000 slaves, Black slaves. The question is, Do the descendants of those free blacks who owned black slaves, do they pay? Blacks really benefited more the first 100 years after slavery than we have in the last 50 years. I was born in 1937 during the Depression. Everyone in my small, low-income black community, 98% of the households had a man and a woman raising children. Elderly people could walk safely in that community without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren. Never heard a gunfire during that time. Never heard of a child being shot to death in the crib. But there are 50 children today who have been shot and killed in our cities. If you're talking about remedies, we've got to look beyond saying that every solution has to have a winner and a loser, that blacks can only benefit if whites lose. We have to be defined more than just victims of oppression. When whites were at their worst, blacks were at their best. When we were denied access to hotels, we built our own. We have to communicate to our people the history of how they achieved in the face of oppression. But if we continue to sit back and say all of the challenges that we face in out of wedlock births of violence, that somehow the control of that is in the hands of white America, and therefore until white people change, there's nothing that we can do. This sets up a terrible situation for this nation. The big crisis facing America is not racial. It is the moral and spiritual freefall that is consuming our children. The highest death rate among black families is homicide. Among Silicon Valley, the highest level of suicide, 6 times the national average. In Appalachia, there are prescription drugs. And so if we are to address this crisis that is causing our children to lack a sense of personal responsibility or value for their own life, they will take their own life or take someone else's.
Who is gonna pay reparation? Who are going to receive reparations? How much are you guys asking? And do you think it will be possible for you guys to be paid that reparation you are asking for?
It's been a lot of studies done in terms of us giving reparations. It won't be as simplistic as reparations they gave to the Italians, the Jews, and the Cubans in Florida. It won't be done on those bases. But I think what happens is the fact that the country basically knows they owe us very much. The reparations that you're referring to totally, it will probably come to about $1.7 trillion.
$1.7 trillion?
Yeah, about $1.7 trillion.
No way, that's too much. Do you think the government will be able to afford it?
Yeah, they can afford it. The problem, yes, they can afford it. I mean, you get frightened there when you say 1.7 trillion. We're worth a lot more.
That's too much money, my brother.
No. It's not too much money. I'm just giving you an estimate. Now, how that money they will study it. And I'm not going to say that we're not going to get it, but it will be studies pertaining to it, because you have to understand America is worth more than $1.7 trillion. She's worth more than that. America has spent more money than that in the Ukrainian war. She spent more than that. Spending more money right now. We're helping Israel. Israel gets $3.8 billion a year from aid from the United States. Now you add that up, how many times we've been giving Israel. So when you say 1.7 trillion, that's too much. No, it isn't. We give Israel $1.8 billion a year. And you know how long we've been doing that? America can afford anything she wants to. You got to understand. See, that's the problem. But you guys don't know America. Whatever America wants, brother, she gets.
But if she can't afford that, why are they paying you that reparation?
We are not considered that good of quality human being to receive any type of reparations. And besides, they do that anyway. Every Democrat, every time we get a Kamala Harris or Barack Obama. Barack Obama didn't give it to us because there's a fear there. They feel reprisal from the dominant society if they even discuss it. Barack Obama never discussed it. He never said, I'm going to give you any reparation, but you gave reparation to all the other groups.
Where does Africa stand in this discussion of reparation?
Well, Africans from the continent don't stand in this at all. They don't have anything to do with this because they're not American. They're from the continent. This has nothing to do with them. It has to do with us.
Don't you think that they owe you something?
Well, that depends on them, and it depends who feels that they do. So I'll leave it at that. because they were complicit in the slave trade, especially the region what we know now as Nigeria and Senegal. They were all complicit in the slave trade. All those African countries were. They were very complicit because they profited from it. The profit that they got from it, they didn't use it in the right way in terms of developing technology. That's why the Europeans are ahead of them. Yeah, let's do their own self-use. See, what the Europeans did from the goods and the slaves, whatever, they took the money economy and started to industrialize their country in terms of technology. The Africans did not do that. And the Africans were the ones that did not want to end the slave trade. They wanted it to continue. They fought with the Europeans to heck it so it could continue. The Europeans were like, no, we got to end this. The British ended in Jamaica in 1834. Okay? They had to fight against the Europeans because they didn't want it to end. And see, and that's why Africa sort of lags behind, because you have to understand, you sold the best of your people into slavery. Look at the ones you sold to America.
That's true. That's true. America helped build the most powerful country in the world. That's true, brother. That's true. Africa should be ashamed of that.
And you're reaping the benefits of, you're reaping what you sold with that. So, I mean, you have, but see, as far as reparation from Africans, that is something that they have, and some African leaders have admitted. I don't know why that president of Uganda, I don't know why he admitted it. I mean, they didn't say he's sorry for our involvement in the slave trade, because we didn't come from Uganda.
Don't you think that there's some Black American who have got their origin from East Africa?
I have origin from East Africa.
And then Uganda is an East African country, though. Why would you say that?
Yeah, but you see what happens is we didn't get slaves imported from Uganda. The slave that came from East Africa basically came from Kenya.
Me watching some Cubans, some other Latinos saying that you guys don't deserve to be paid reparation, that made me actually very, very sad.
Well, they can say pretty much what they want. And for a Cuban to say we don't deserve reparation, I would simply tell a Cuban, give back the money that the United States government gave you people when you came here fleeing Fidel Castro and building up Little Miami. Give us back that billions and billions of dollars that the United States government gave you to build Little Miami or to become established in America.
What should be done to encourage unity between all of those Hispanics, Latinos, and Black Americans in America? The unity between brown and brown people in America. What should be done?
Well, first of all, they have to come to a better understanding of one another. And the Latinos have to get off of this binge that they think that they're white. They have to get off of that, and that they will never do. So you have to start right there, because they're not Anglo-Saxon whites. They're not even secondary whites. So you have to start by there, because in their mindset, we are a white. We Black Americans have been hearing this for how many decades from Latino, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, or whatever. My grandmother, we're from Spain, we are white. No, you are not Anglo-Saxon white. And that they are never going to give up. So I don't know if a Black and brown coalition, and as a matter of fact, we're not divided. Black Americans associate with Latinos every single day. Every single day we associate with them. They have cosplayed a lot of Black American.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But last few days, when Latinos were protesting in LA, they've been calling Black Americans to go and support them. But according to what I've been seeing, Black Americans were saying that it's not their fight.
See, what you don't understand, like I said, you got to understand, what demonstrating and protesting for Latinos, Black Americans have already been there and done it for all of these groups of people. They have done it for all of them, Latinos included. Even a Latino woman even says she's white and she's Cuban. She said Black Americans should not get out here and demonstrate for us, because she said they have already done this for us. They have. I grew up in the era where Black Americans demonstrated, not only for Latinos, for Haitians, Jamaicans, and Cubans, and everybody. Because as I said, it's difficult when you don't know the history. They have already done that. They have demonstrated for Latinos. What more do you want from them? They have already been there for you. Latinos, Jamaicans, Haitians, Cubans, Puerto Ricans. None of these people have ever come out in mass. And the Cuban lady admitted that. They have never come out in mass and said, we want this for Blacks too. We want to include ourselves with Black. They don't do that. We have done it for them, but they have not done it for us. Cubans, Puerto Ricans, whatever. If they can just go, I'm white, that's good enough for them. Until you get that mindset, they diminish that mindset, they can always be in the position they're in. And it's always going to be someone like Donald Trump, whatever, let you know you are not white. You are not like us. As Kendrick Lamar said, you are not like us. And that's what they're telling them. You have never come out in mass, and like the Cuban woman said, and they've done that for Black Americans. No, they haven't. But we have done it for them. We've been there, did it, and done it. What more the hell you want from us? We've done it for you. We're not going to come out there in mass and do that for us. No, you're not. No, they're not. But we have done it for you. We have done it for you. I lived through that era, my brother. I know we've done for other people. Black Americans, actually, we put Africa on the map.